if you love a pop of color, but you're not sure how to incorporate that into your makeup, I'm going to show you this particular look that incorporates pinks, oranges, and even some gorgeous grays with beautiful, flawless, bronzed skin. So even if there's just a few things that you want to pull from this particular tutorial, or you want to use all of these products together, enjoy. First thing I want to do is show you how to prepare your skin. Now, if you'd like to, at this point, you could do your eye makeup first. If you're a little bit messy and you find you get a lot of fallout, do that first and it'll save you time. But if you're a little bit more confident and you're happy just to get your skin started, here is how I recommend you get going when you're using the loose minerals. So for me, I've got more of a dehydrated skin now as I'm getting a little bit older, but you can still use the loose minerals, especially if you're someone who's sweaty. Maybe you are in an environment where it's a bit more humid. Maybe you want to wear something when you're out and about playing a bit of sport or going to the gym, where you just like the ease of putting on a mineral powder. Any age and any skin type can use it. It's all about what you put underneath. So if you've got an oilier skin, probably your primer and your moisturizer is enough. But for someone like myself, you can definitely pop on one of the facial oils so that the skin is more dewy and nourished and hydrated, so that when you put your minerals on, it's going to absorb into this beautiful facial oil and turn it into more of a liquid looking foundation. Now, the other tip here is, if you'd like, you can actually mix your mineral and your oil together in your hand or a dish first, and you can turn it into your own liquid or even a cream foundation. Okay, so let's get started. I just used the Calm and Soothe. I'm getting a little bit of like a rosacea on my cheek, so I love that to soothe the redness. And I'm going to now use the light to medium loose minerals in the Adorn range with, of course, the best-selling flat top kabuki brush. Now, the reason we use a flat top kabuki brush is that it touches more surface area of the skin than the dome, and it also has less fallout. So pop a little bit on, and then I like to use the lid to get it nice and even. So you just grab a corner of the brush, about that much. Okay, you don't need to put the whole brush in, just put the edge of the brush in, and then you use the lid to get it nice and even on the brush. Okay, now depending on the coverage will depend on how you use this kabuki brush. If you like fuller coverage, then you'll use a press roll action, which is similar to a stippling. Or if you're wanting lighter coverage, then you just do more of a buffing technique. If you want lighter coverage than that, then you might want to opt for one of the larger brushes or one of our complexion brushes that has longer bristles. So the longer the bristles, the less coverage you'll get. Okay, the shorter and the more dense, the more coverage you'll get. All right, so let's get started. I'm going to use a press roll action for some of the skin because I want full coverage sort of around the T-zone, and then I'll buff it where I don't want as much. So you can see already that little bit of loose mineral foundation has lifted that dark circle. It's evened out the skin in less than 2 seconds, and it's given me the SPF benefits of the 20+. So I love this as a foundation when I'm out and about in summer or spring and the sun is out. So just a quick pressing action. You can see this side, it has almost eliminated the look of my pigment damage as well. And it just looks like skin. It's so lightweight. It doesn't feel thick, especially great if you're feeling a little bit menopausal. Maybe you're feeling hormonal, or maybe you just live, as I said, in more of a hot, humid climate. Now, I like to buff around the nose because we've got large pores, so it just helps to penetrate that little bit more. And it looks nice. You can see, and dewy. There's a little bit of a sheen there, which is awesome. That's what we want, a little bit of skin. Now, you can layer this foundation as well if you wanted to get it heavier again. You can also pop this loose foundation over the top of a liquid or a cream if you'd like, but you can see the coverage here is perfect. Okay, so the other side, let's get going on that. I like to use the loose minerals gently around the eye because of the SPF. So you still may want some concealer, but for me, I do use it for that benefit. If you're wearing your hair back, then just pop some behind the ears because they're a little bit pasty behind there. And if you've got an uneven décolletage like I do, or chest area, then you might want to pop a bit on the chest as well. I think why not? There's 20 plus in there. This area is so prone to sun damage, so why not just pop a bit on there? So it's evened up that chest area. And of course, if you want to take it down the neck to also get the SPF, the loose minerals are water and sweat resistant, so not rub resistant. So if you're going to be, you know, rubbing it, eventually of course will come off, but in respect to your clothes and things like that, it's really not going to come off like some traditional makeups will. So it is great to pop on the neck as well, not only to get a nice even color, because we're often quite dark here compared to our neck and face, so you bring everything into balance, but also you're giving the SPF to your neck as well. Okay, when you're finished and you're happy with the coverage, just finish with downward strokes. And the reason for that is that it will lay flat any of those little fine hairs that you may have on your face. If you've been buffing, you're going to be lifting those up. They'll be more obvious because the foundation will sit on them. So finish by stroking down with the kabuki brush to get everything to look settled and to look its best. Okay, so now we're on to step 2. Probably one of my favorite products is the Peachy Sleep Under Eye Concealer. So even though I've got a little bit of foundation, which may be enough for some of you, I still feel a little bit dark, and I like to put a bit of concealer on there just to give that lift and also look more awake. So I'm going to pop some of that on. I like to use my ring finger for this. Just because it's one of the most gentle of your fingers, and I just rub some of the product together like this. And start on the inner corners here like that, because we're quite dark in there. Now with the concealer, I'm just focusing on this area, not this area, because this is where we smile and you get this creasing, and we're not often dark around here anyway, so if you can avoid placing concealer there, it's going to look a lot nicer and you're not getting that caking and that creasing. Okay, so place your concealer in this area. You can blend it out to here, but don't put product there because it's just too heavy and it will gravitate towards those laughing lifelines. All right, so a little bit more. I'm just going to pat, like an eye cream, just pat it on. I've got the matching nails for this look and top. Okay, so that's perfect. It's really given a nice lift. Now I'm just going to gently blend out, and a very, very teeny tiny amount I'm going to put in the corners, which is where the tear ducts are. Okay, so not down here, but just where those were a bit red in the outer corner. Now, if you at this point do need to conceal anything on the face, make sure you get a concealer that matches the skin color, okay? You may want to use a lighter concealer for areas like your maybe you've got some deep sort of lines that you might want to make look less deep, so go with a slightly lighter concealer if you're correcting. But if you're also wanting to make sure that you're covering things like maybe some large pores, don't use a concealer that's too light because it'll make those pores look bigger. So light things look bigger, darker things look smaller. So make sure that any of your raised blemishes or imperfections, anything that's raised, it's already looking big, you want to minimize it. So make sure you use a concealer that's the same color as your foundation, possibly a smidge darker. And then for any area that's concave or a bit more sallow that you want to conceal, then use something a little bit lighter or at least the same color, and that will make that area look a little bit bigger. Okay, so that's the concealer, and I'm also now going to put on the Tinted Eye Primer. And again, I'm just using my ring fingers for this. You can use a brush if you want, but it's just to correct the veins on the eyelids. And I also love how the loose mineral eyeshadows stick to this and look way more intense. They're very pigmented by themselves, but I love how they look over the top of a cream. They just get really intense and vibrant. So you can see that Tinted Eye Primer is kind of like a nude eyeshadow. So if you were to set that down, it's beautiful, bit of eyeliner, and it's just a gorgeous way of opening up the eye, neutralizing veins, and you can just wear it by itself, or of course use an eyeshadow over the top. Okay, so we're ready for the rest of the skin and the eyes. Now I do like to do my eyebrows as a second. If I've done my foundation, I do like to do my eyebrows second, simply because I'm going to use a brow dust and I may get a little bit of fallout. So I don't want to pop concealer on and then I've got to wipe it away because I've had that brow dust fall down. So if you're using a pencil, it may not matter, but I do feel like structuring and defining your brows now really makes a difference when you go to applying your eyeliner and your eyeshadow. So my recommendation is always do your brows first when it comes to looking at your eye makeup. Just gives everything more balance to work with. All right, so I like to give my brows a little quick brush with a comb, and using the angle brush, you can use it damp or dry depending on how dramatic you want your brows to look, and dip it into your brow dust. I'm using the medium color, which is quite good for anybody that's got quite dark hair, or you've got sort of a natural brown, or if you're a bit blonde and you want to have that contrasting look. Okay, now again, this is also water and sweat resistant, so we're not going to lose an eyebrow halfway through the day, which is great. And I'm just placing a small amount at a time using my lid. Just tap off any excess. And if you've got a good brow shape, just follow your natural brow. So you can just see I'm a little bit sparse in some areas, so I'm not filling in my whole brow, but rather just focusing on where I've got that sparseness, just to give it a bit more fullness. Okay, perfect. All right, now you don't want your brows to go down too far. You want to keep them in line with the edge of your eye, just like this, and your nose. So you could use this as a bit of a stencil. If you have your brows going down too far, they're going to drag the eye down, giving you a droopy look. And in fact, as you get older, you might be able to just slowly pluck the lower brows a little bit more, and you can see just by doing that, what does it do? It literally lifts the eye. Okay, so you don't want to go too far in, but you can definitely remove just a little bit of the brow here to give that up and more open, awake looking eye. Okay, combing again. I like to do this because it separates the hairs, especially if you've put the brow dust on and it's clumped the hairs together. It also helps to separate the brow dust a little bit so it looks like little hairs, because of course the comb will go through that. So the brows are done. You might want to use just a brush that's quite large just to gently dust away any fallout that might have popped onto this part of the eye. You don't want to rub that in with your concealer. And the next step for me at this point is concealing the underneath of my eyes. One of my favorite chubby colors for the eyes, or crayon rather, is the graphite color. This is perfect for those of you that have really light hair, even gray hair, or if you've got really fair complexion and you just find eyeliners a little bit much for you, then a beautiful soft gray or graphite like this will really look nice but not be too harsh, and it's also quite easy to apply. So this is one I'm going to use because it's kind of a bluey gray and that complements orange, those two colors. So I'm going to use this as an eyeliner but also as a little bit of an cream eyeshadow. So let's get started. Now I'm just popping it on the outer corner of the eye. Okay, so just this focus here, like that. So really easy. It's just the edge of your iris here to the end of your lash line. Okay, we don't want to go down past the edge of your eye. Again, you're going to give yourself a droopy eye. So let's just start. Use the edge of your brow as a guide, your starting point, and then the way to avoid getting a droopy eye is to apply the eyeliner inwards, not outwards, because then you're going to be inclined to go down with the eye line. Now, that's the beautiful graphite by itself. So you could very much just stop, do the rest of your skin, put mascara on, and it's a beautiful, natural, really light way of defining the eyes and the eyelashes by itself. But we're going to ramp this up a little bit. Okay, so now I'm going to feather this in to the crease of the eye. Now put more on than what you're comfortable with, because when you start blending, you will blend away some of the color. So don't be afraid to get a little bit heavy-handed with this, right into the crease. And I'm taking that up onto my bone just there. Now, if you've got hooded eyes, then what you might want to do is just take it up as far as you can, definitely onto your bone here, and then it will give the illusion of a socket. So that's what's great about this, is that you can do this particular technique if you've got a hooded eye. If you've got excess skin, one tip that you can use is to just lift your eye up like this, just to get the color right on the skin, so your skin's not moving everywhere. But to get the placement right, you need to then just leave everything as is and then start placing the eyeshadow or the crayon or whatever it is you're using. You need to then start placing it with the eye looking natural. So if you're wanting to create a lifted a lift to the eye, you will pop a little bit of your crayon, and you might just dab at it like this, even if you're finding your skin's moving too much. Okay, all right, so what I'm going to do now is just blend this in with a dome or a round socket brush, and I'm really just going to focus on the edges, okay, just to blend away those edges. So you can see it doesn't look particularly pretty to start with. Okay, it's just placing it in the right area, and I'm blending in. That's going to stop me from blending down and giving a droopy eye. So blending in, and I'm really just focusing on the outside of where you've got the seam. So this is what I call a seam, where you can see the product compared to the skin. Okay, so there's a seam there, and that's what I'm trying to get rid of. So really quite effortless. It's just very gently blending and using this dome brush, okay? And if you do wipe some away and you want to add a bit more, you can of course go back and just put a little bit more into the socket, that's fine, and then just blend away again, that's up to you. Again, you might just want to leave this right at this. It looks beautiful. It's a gorgeous little classic sort of smoky eye. Okay, one that most people can wear. It's beautiful, it looks great with obviously the orange, and again, you could either set that down with a bit of setting powder, or you can pop a little bit of eyeshadow over the top, which is what we're going to do today. So let me now grab my other dome brush. You could probably use a flat brush for this if you wanted to, and I'm using the amber in the loose minerals. Okay, again, they're very pigmented, so just start with a small amount and then you can always build onto that. Now, because we're placing this over cream products, which is the tinted primer and also the crayon, it's going to go on a lot more intense than it would if it was just to go on a dry lid. Now, if you wanted to, you could just use this as a bit of a pop of color in the base or the center part of the eye rather, which is what I'm going to do. So I want to keep that smoky look, but I want a bit of a pop of color in the center of my eye. So I'm really just placing it here. Now you can do this with any crayon, any eyeshadow. Use your crayon or even a dark eyeshadow. Use something that's darker here and then use a complementary or a pop of color in the center of your eye here. It's almost a little bit like a cat's eye, if you remember that little ring, or even just a cat's eye in general. You're just placing that color down the center of the eye here. And I'm just lots of little tapping. I'm not blending. This is placing it on and really short, quick tapping. And I'm really just feeling my eyeball, basically. A little bit more there. So if you're not wanting to be as adventurous as using, say, the amber, you could use maybe pink pearl. There are so many nice colors that you could use for this look. But see how they complement each other. This amber and the graphite really look beautiful together. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is grab a really large dome brush, okay, and then I'm using this as my blender. So this is just going to bring all of those eyeshadows together so that there's no seams, and it also just dusts away any extra. So I'm really just focusing here on the inside of my eye because I don't want that sort of orange and nude. I want it to be blended just a little bit. Perfect. Not a lot, doesn't need a lot. And then just to finish this eye look off rather, I'm now going to grab a little bit of the Invincible, which I love this color because it's just a silvery sort of kind of silvery white. So it's really good for giving the eyebrow height, definition, and the eye a lift. So I'm just placing it in the arch of the brow out. I'm not placing it here, okay? So especially if you've got older skin or crepey skin or excess skin, really just focus on this outer area, which will give you a nice lift, okay? Not the whole way. You could use an illuminizer for this as well, but I really like the Invincible for this. And you can also go back and get a tiny bit. So this particular brush I've used is our angle. It's like a fat angle brush. Okay, it's quite good for obviously using under the brow. You could use it for the socket as well. Just putting a little bit on the tip of the Invincible, and now I'm just popping it right there to make the eyes look whiter and healthier. Now you could do this with an illuminizer as well, but the Invincible eyeshadow, because it's got that white base to it, it really just makes the whites of your eyes stand out. Another good product that you may like to use for this same look, but also maybe the inner rim. If you've got bloodshot eyes, or your eyes are maybe looking a little bit yellow, or you just want them to look whiter, is to grab our white, so the pearl crayon, which is the same as this, but it's a white pearl color, and that will make the eyes look a lot whiter as well. Okay, so there we have the eyes finished. No, nearly finished. I'm now going to pop a little bit of black eyeliner in the tight line. So that's just basically underneath here, underneath the lashes. This bit of skin is what we would call your inner rim, and that's what people refer to when they're doing a tight line. They're just putting a bit of eyeliner under there. It gives definition, it gives depth, and it gives also volume, so you look like you've got more lashes. But I like the contrast of the black with this graphite color. So all you need to do is use your black wind up. For this particular color, I think coloring black is best. Brown doesn't stand out enough for this particular look. So I'm really just tickling on the inner rim, and you can see how that's given definition. So just really tickle the lashes like that. Now you could pop it on the bottom line if you wanted to, but you will need to reapply that all day. And you can also do a little bit of a wing. So I'm going to show you, I'm just going to head up towards the brow. I'm using the corner of my eye, and I'm just kind of flicking like that. So corner of my eye and just flicking up. Just to give a little bit of a wing and to give the eyes that look of being lifted. Now, if you can't get that wing looking really straight, then grab your angle brush using the longest end first and just place it in the corner of the eye and just sweep up like this. And see, that's perfected it for me. There we go. And the same on this side. Perfect. Okay, so that's the eyes done, bar the mascara, but we'll move on to that next. Now, if you're wanting to just grab another brush just to dust away any fallout you might have got from your eyeshadow, another little tip is you can always use a tissue like this and do your eyeshadow that way. Completely up to you. There's just some little tips there for you as to what would work really well. Okay, now moving on to the skin. The first thing that I'm going to pop on is a bronzer. Okay, so I love our loose bronzers. The pigments are really strong, so you don't need a lot, but you can use them as bronzer, as a contour product. You can use them as eyeshadow. You can use them on your body if you're wanting to have a little bit of color on your arms, legs, you name it. And again, just using the lid and one of the more tighter brushes if you want real definition or depth of color, and if you're wanting a lighter sort of sun-kissed look, then you might want to go with a slightly bigger brush. Okay, so putting just a small amount on and using the lid to get it nice and even on the brush like this, and I'm going to place this in my, what I call my very quick 3 method. So I'm following my hairline. I'm going to, at the top of my ear, I'm going to just go down a little bit to the edge of my eye. And then I'm going to run this bronzer along my jawline, possibly down my neck. So it's like a number 3. Okay, and the reason we're going in those areas is putting a bit of bronzer here not only will help neutralize if you've got any pigmentation, but it'll also help narrow a large forehead because darker things look smaller. But what it also does that I love is it gives dimension to your face and your foundation, because often foundation can make you look quite flat. It hides your flaws, but it takes away all the natural elements of your skin. So this is bringing those elements back, so you look healthier, you look more youthful, and you don't look like you've got flat, dry or dehydrated looking skin. So placing it along here. Now, if you've got quite a narrow face, or you are aging and you're conscious of your face narrowing, when you get to this section here, rather than going downwards, which you'll see a lot of people doing when they're contouring, we're going to go straight across. Now going straight across gives a lift. If we go down, it's creating more of that sallow look. Okay, and along the jaw is really giving definition to the jaw and placing some bronzer under here. If you've got a little bit of excess skin you're not loving, bronzer under there is perfect. So let's get started with this 3. Now, don't worry if you put it on and you think, wow, it's too obvious, I can see the difference. I'll show you how to fix that in a moment. I always like to put a bit on my ear. Can't handle having, you know, an ear that looks pasty white to the rest of my face. Now, I'm going more in than down because I have quite a narrow face. Now, if you've got blonde hair or grey hair, what you might want to do is use your hand as a guide so you don't get this product into your hair. So you just use your finger and you just keep moving around like that. But I've got dark hair, so I don't have to worry about it. Okay, going across because I don't want to look more sallow along the jaw. Ear, behind the ear. Now, with what's left on the brush, you're now going to bring all of this together so that there isn't that seam, okay? So you're just going to now gently go over the forehead, go over the temples, downward strokes again here, getting the hair to lay flat, and then bring it all together by going over the mouth, the nose, the eyebrows a little bit. You might even want to just gently go over the eyes if you're wanting to underneath. Okay, so I didn't re-dip it, what was left, I just went around and I brought everything together by going over the top of it. If you make a monumental mistake where it's just like a real big blob of color there and you can't get rid of that seam by using your brush that's got no bronzer left on it, grab your kabuki and just gently sweep over it, and I promise you this will fix it because there's a little bit of foundation still on there. It will bring it all together for you. Okay, now I do think popping a little bit of bronzer on the décolletage is nice, or as I said, underneath the chin area, or you might just want to pop it on the collarbone so you look browner, but you've not necessarily put it everywhere. So you could pop it just here on the 2 collarbones, a little bit in here, and then what's left, just dust it out. So you don't have to put a lot on. So place the bronzer where you want it, but then blend it with what's left on the brush. The bigger, the fluffier brush for the neck and the décolletage is the best. So you want to look for something that's more big and fluffy like that, because you don't want the product to grab and start to look patchy because you're dealing with such a big area of skin. Okay, so that's brought everything together. It looks so much healthier now that I've got this little bit of bronzer on, not just the foundation. Okay, now if you're wanting to darken that up, what you can do, if you're wanting to use this now as a contour, you can either use the same brush and pinch it, or you can grab a smaller brush, which I don't have with me, I'm sorry. So we're going to just use this and just pinch it, okay? So you can use one of our smaller, more angled brushes, or if you're someone who just wants to use one brush, then just use your brush and pinch it. So you get a little line like that. Again, if you've got a wider face and you want it to look narrower, go down. If you've got a narrower face, you want to go more straight towards the nose. Now, if your bronzer's got a little bit of an luminescent, like it's got a bit of a shine to it, then you probably wouldn't use it for a contour in this way, because it's going to look lighter and it's going to give a bit of a sparkle, which you really want a matte product for this. Okay, so now that I've got that where I want it, and there's too much product on this now, I'm going to go and grab my kabuki brush just to go over it, to tone it down and blend it a little bit. but it's still, you can see it's still kept that nice, strong contour. Okay, there we go. Perfect. All right, so now what we want to do is focus on the cheeks. So what I've got is a couple of colors here, and the first one is the cream bronzer. Okay, so popping a little bit onto, now you can use a brush if you want to, but I'm going to use this part of my hand because it's very similar to the cheek. So remember, this is all about a bronzed spring summer vibe with pop of color. So I've got the pop of orange, and I'm using this for the bronzing on the face. I'm going to use a pop of color on the cheeks with the cream bronzer as well as a blush in a moment. So I'm just using this by placing it about here and back up into the temple area. You don't want to go too low or it's going to drag the face down. The beauty of the Adorn products is you can use a cream over a loose and vice versa, which is awesome. Okay, so again, if you feel like you've put too much on, too easy, because all you need to do is, again, either grab your kabuki or the brush you were using for your bronzer before and just gently sweep over it. Especially if you've come too far down, you can just sweep that away like that. Okay. Perfect. All right, so done with that. Now I'm going to pop on a little bit of a pop of color. Okay, so it's not just all bronze. You could leave it like this if you wanted to. The reason I've used the cream bronzer is just so I've got a bit more color over here. It's a bit more dewy and it's got that luminescence to it as well, you can see. So I've used the cream and I've used the loose minerals together. Now I'm going to put on a little bit of the summer blush, the loose one. Now you could use a finger if you wanted to, but I'm just popping it on the apples of the cheeks here. Just to give a bit of a break up to that bronze, a tiny little bit of pink. The summer bronzer looks quite deceiving. It's quite pink in the pop, but it's quite a pretty natural color. Okay, so I'm going to just tone that down a little bit using a clean brush now to bring it all together. My hair out of the way. Perfect. Okay, and then to finish off the dewiness of my face, I'm going to now use the cream highlighter. And I'm just using my ring fingers again for this. So it just goes to show you don't need, I mean, it's nice to use brushes, but you don't always need them. And I'm putting this in my temple area. Now, one, it's because the sun naturally sort of hits you there. Two, as you get older, we can get a bit sunken in, which is quite aging. So giving an illuminescent or a highlighting product here will make that area look bigger. So I apply it to my temples and then I bring whatever's left on my fingers down onto my cheekbones. So it's just a graduation of that nice dewiness, okay? Now you could pop a little bit in the middle of your nose here. Don't put it on the tip if you've got large pores, or don't pop any cream highlighter or any highlighter products where you have large pores. I'm putting it in the center of my forehead as well, so I get that nice natural shine. You could put a little bit on your chin if you wanted to. And of course, a little bit on the collarbones. Just so it looks nice and healthy when the sun hits you. Now, if you're going to be wearing lipstick or a gloss, you might also want to put a little bit of this cream highlight on your Cupid's bow. So what that'll do is give a little bit of a curl. See how it's made my line stand out more? You do it under the lip. You can even do it in the middle of the lip. So keeping the middle of the lip lighter with a product that's an aluminized product like this one means that when you put your lipstick on, this area is going to stay lighter, which gives the illusion of a pouch or fuller lips. So there you go. You can have fuller lips without necessarily having them injected. So there we go. We'll pop the lip liner and the lipstick on next. And then we'll finish off with mascara, and of course we'll finish off with a dust of setting powder if you so need it. All right, so the product that I'm going to use now is the bright pink lip liner. Okay, so where are we? We are here. It's a wind up pencil. Now you could just wear a nudie sort of colour if you're not wanting to, you know, wear so much colour, that's fine, but the pink and the orange together just look amazing. Now when I put my lip liner on, notice I'm doing small little feathery strokes. Don't just drag it because you're never going to get a straight line. It's very small feathery little strokes. Now, if you've got a droopy mouth, which I do, we don't want to take the line all the way down because it's going to make the lip look droopy. We want to finish it just short of the edge of your lip, so about here. Okay, so I've not followed it. The same with the bottom. You want to start a little bit in, so you've got a natural lift to the lip. Now that I've got my lips lined, I do like to use the lip liner a little bit further in the lip, just so if my lipstick does wear off throughout the day, I don't have just that lip lining look. This is actually a really pretty colour by itself. Okay, so that is the bright pink lip liner, and now I'm going to use one of my favourite lipsticks, which is the Persistence in the Brights range. These are such long wearing lipsticks that you will almost forget to wash it off at night. So if you do cleanse, make sure you give your lips a bit of a cleanse with an oil because they are really quite long lasting. So you can see that very subtle lightness to the middle of my mouth here, which gives a nice pout. Perfect. Love, love, love this. So you can see that I've got contrasting colors, and also complementary colors, but it all works. I've got this beautiful pink, I've got an orange top, orange nails, I've got orange on the eye, I've got this smoky sort of a grey graphite, but I've also given that contrast of the black eyeliner. And then all I need to do now is pop on my mascara, fix up my hair, and I'm all done. But before I move on to mascara, I'll just put a little bit of the setting powder on. So if you're someone who has really oily skin, you have problematic skin, maybe you just like that really matte finish, then this is perfect. And you just pop it, don't want to pop it on my illuminizer, but I'm just putting it in the middle of my eyebrows. I get a little bit sort of sweaty there, on the nose, corners of the nose, the chin. Okay, but just sort of down the T-zone. And you might want to pop a little bit over your décolletage or your neck if you've put a bit of makeup there as well. But there we go. There's my beautiful, it's almost like a little citrus look.